Hi, everyone. Jose and I will today be looking at what are the best practices to review a GitLab MR using GDK. And Jose has his GDK set up, so the stage to you.
Yeah, thank you. So the one thing that I recommend for those who want to use the GDK to review things, I currently have my GDK up and running. And the one thing that I usually do in this kind of cases when I want to review MRs and I want to test functionality is that I go to the merge request and I click this button here, which is copies the branch name of the MR that I want to take a look at. And then I go back to my terminal. I'm just going to clear everything out and just type git fetch origin. The name origin is just like the default configuration. If you haven't changed anything, origin might be different for you. And just paste the name of the branch that I want. What this will do is that it will basically, what Git will basically do, hey, this branch, I want you to fetch the latest information from it and copy it on my local. From there, I can just change to that branch and see the changes. So if I do git checkout, the name of the branch, oh, I just have some changes that because of it, I updated GDK. So there we go. Let's try it again. Once I change to that branch, I can start taking a look at things. In case GDK doesn't pick up your changes, it's because it mostly needs a page refresh. But in this case, since I'm just at the beginning of the GDK, I'm just about to log in. Most changes should be picked up. If they haven't been picked up, in case your GDK is already running, just make sure to refresh. Let's wait a second. If the GDK kind of gets stuck in this part, because it sometimes does when you change branches, branches sometimes can be a little bit behind the main branch because currently this merge request is 175 commits. Sometimes this happens because of changes in the backend that require a GDK restart. That is fine. You can just issue restart. So I'm just going to wait a few seconds. Otherwise, I'll just restart the GDK entirely. Oh, there you go. It's actually back up and running. So I have a bunch of projects. This might look different to you, but for me, I'm just going to go to this one, the browser performance example. And to provide context, this merge request is about the pipelines page. The idea is we want to do a quick redesign of the pipelines page. So all the changes will be inside CI/CD and pipelines. Perfect. But the one thing that I didn't cover, because this merge request is actually behind a feature flag, is that I haven't enabled the feature flag. What happens if I haven't enabled the feature flag? I will get the previous version of the pipelines table. So for that, I usually, what I will usually do is that I will run the Rails console, bundle exec Rails console, or you can do, instead of Rails, you can use Rick. Personally, I like Rails. It's just, it helps me keep the context of, hey, what am I working with? I'm working with the GDK, and GDK contains the Ruby on Rails framework, so I want to access the Rails console. That's why I prefer to use Rails, but this is personal preference. So once this loads, you will see like the prime main prompt. You can start issuing Ruby code here, and it will work. Like you can say puts hello, and it will work. But currently, the 2 or 3 commands that you need to learn, there are 3 commands that you need to remember, is feature enable, feature disable, and feature enable with a question mark. The latter one pretty much says, hey, is this feature flag enabled? Disable and enable and disable features correspondingly. So I mentioned in my merge request that the name of the feature flag is rearrange pipelines table. So what I will ask, hey, is this feature enabled? Yes, yes, it is. But let's say that is disabled. I'm just gonna disable it. And all of this, don't care about, don't worry about too much what happens here. It's just a bunch of database stuff that is currently happening. As long as you get a true at the end, that means it has worked. If you don't get a true, you get an error. That probably needs some debugging. And in this case, we can just change feature.disable for feature.enable. Same thing, bunch of database stuff, and it returns a true. Just one tip, if you want to move fast like it did, in case you want to change just enable and disable, you can do up and down, just like your terminal. But if you want to say just change feature dot disable or enable, because the previous command wasn't that, you can just use control and your arrow keys, and your cursor will move to the closest word, not the next character, but the closest word that is separated by a period, an underscore, a comma. So it's pretty handy for navigation. So if you want to end your current Rails console session, press Control D, and it will return you back to the terminal. Now that the feature flag is enabled, we can go back here and just refresh the page, and it should show up. I'm not sure you wanted us to cover anything else, Vitika.
This was great. I mean, even I forgot to mention that about the features flag thing. It was there in my mind. And yes, I, of course, wasn't able to do this very well. But one more thing that that's kind of a problem that I'm facing when I'm reviewing using GDK is, so let's say there's an MR, I review it once, I drop some comments and request a few changes. So when I review it for the first time and check out the branch, everything goes very smooth. But when I have to then I go back to the main branch and do other works until I get a change there. And so when the change is up and I again have to review it, when I check out the branch, everything breaks, like it doesn't open. So what could potentially be the reason for that?
Okay, so there might be a couple of things that could be happening. One is that because the author of the MR just made some changes and pushed them to the branch, it could possibly mean that you're out of date. That means you have to fetch the latest changes and refresh your page. Also,
Okay.
depending on how new some of those changes are, your main branch could also be behind already, because it gets out of sync, so you had to sync up. So there's a couple of options. What I would do, let's say you are back in the main branch, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're back in the main branch, you're doing your work, and all of a sudden the author says, hey, I already pushed some changes, can you review again, please? So the one thing, the one thing that you could do is, hey, let me just issue GDK update before changing branches. And let's say we run the GDK update after you save your work, of course. And from there, there's a couple of things. Usually when you rebase a merge request, you won't see any new, you won't see new comments. Like if you refresh this page and all of a sudden the author pushed something new, sorry, push a rebase, you won't see like changes in the comments tab. You will only see like the source brand is like, in fact, let's rebase just to simulate that scenario. Because this happens as well, a lot of people will rebase and then will amend the comment that they have. They won't push a new comment because perhaps it's just like a small text copy change. And you cannot do git pull with that because git pull will think, hey, there's no any new comments, so I'm not gonna fetch anything new. But what you could do instead, oh, see, rebasing says the source branch is 2 comments behind, and someone push right in the middle of rebasing, and that's fine. So let's say a GDK update and everything works, and then I want to fetch the latest changes. So what I would usually do is do git branch -d and paste the name of the branch that I want to delete locally, because I want to delete that branch locally. That will still exist in the GitLab repository, so I will delete it, and then I will fetch it again.
Okay.
And that will fetch the latest changes, including the rebase and any amended commits, because the history, it hasn't changed. So that's why you cannot use git pull. If you see a different number of commits, you can definitely use git pull and it will work perfectly fine. It's just that for this particular scenario where you amend commits and you rebase, I found more success deleting the branch and fetching it again than doing. So some people just like to fetch the contents again, and it works. But I had some various degrees of success with that method.
Okay, so one question that I have from this is, so let's say if I have to re-review an MR, which is many commits ahead, and so should I ideally be rebasing it first on the MR and then fetching the branch again after deleting the one locally?
It depends, right? Because let's say your GDK is already updated and the branch is perhaps a few commits behind yours. And what I don't want to happen is my GDK to break, right? So what I will do is start the GDK on your main branch, and then if it's only a rebase, what I would do is like delete the branch locally, just like I did right now, and fetch it again. And from there, the GDK will pick up the changes because it's already running, and you can just refresh the page and you should be able to see the new work. But let's say the author pushed new commits because the changes the changes required to address some of the comments were significant. So they push a new commit just to make sure the history is there. I will do git pull origin and then git pull origin, the name of the branch. But don't do this unless you're in the branch itself. Like if you're in master or the main branch, sorry, like if you do this, don't do git pull origin, the name of the branch that you're trying to review. Do git checkout first on the name of the branch that you want to review, and then do git pull origin, the name of the branch.
Perfect. Got it. All right.
Any other questions, or perhaps did I go too fast?
No, you didn't go fast, and you gave very useful tips, things that we have been struggling every day with MRs. Anything else that you think could be very useful for us? Because I am out of questions now.
Unfortunately, I don't think this covers I don't want to go a little overboard because there's some other tips that we have here at GitLab. Perhaps another session will be excellent, or perhaps even a live session. But we do have some tools here at GitLab that even release managers use to help review merge requests that are particularly complex, especially when you're working for example, with community contributions, where you want to cherry pick the comments instead of reviewing the entire branch, because perhaps only one comment contains the changes that you want to take a look at, and the other comments don't really make much sense because perhaps they only contain some documentation changes, or perhaps just a change log, right? Sometimes community contributors like to separate the change logs and documentation, and then the code changes, and you're just interested in the code changes. So we can do that as well, but that's like
Another
going
level.
deeper into Git.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, a follow-up sounds like a brilliant idea. So I might just schedule another one, and we can decide on the agenda for that beforehand, so we have a clear path on what we should be covering there. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Yeah, I'll stop the recording now.
Thank you.